Imagine waking up 250 miles above Earth, floating weightlessly as the sun rises over the curve of our blue planet. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, it's happening right now. Space tourism has officially arrived, and companies are already taking reservations for trips to orbit, the Moon, and even Mars. But here's the real question. Are we actually ready for this? And more importantly, can regular people like you and me ever afford a ticket? Let's find out. Space tourism isn't some distant dream anymore. It's real, it's happening, and it's evolving fast. In 2021, we witnessed history when billionaires Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, and later inspired missions sent civilians to the edge of space and beyond. But this wasn't just about rich guys having fun. It marked the beginning of a completely new industry. Right now, there are three main types of space tourism you can actually book. First, there's suborbital flights, where you go just past the edge of space, experience a few minutes of weightlessness, and come back down. Think Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin. Then there's orbital tourism, where you actually orbit Earth for days at a time. SpaceX has already done this with private missions to the International Space Station. And finally, there's the really ambitious stuff, lunar tourism and deep space missions that could take you around the Moon or eventually to Mars. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, Axiom Space, and even newcomers from China and Russia are all racing to make space accessible. The technology is advancing faster than anyone predicted just 10 years ago. Reusable rockets have completely changed the game, making launches cheaper and more frequent. So what does a trip to space actually involve? Let's break down what you'd experience on each type of journey. For suborbital flights, you're looking at a total experience of about 2 to 3 hours from takeoff to landing, but only 3 to 5 minutes of actual weightlessness at the edge of space. You'd ride in a spacecraft that goes straight up, reaching about 50 to 60 miles altitude, where you can see the curve of Earth and the blackness of space. You unbuckle, float around the cabin, maybe do a flip, take some incredible photos, and then strap back in for the descent. The entire thing is over before you know it, but those few minutes are absolutely life-changing according to everyone who's done it. Orbital tourism is a completely different beast. You're talking about days or even weeks in space. You'd launch on a rocket like SpaceX's Falcon 9, dock with the International Space Station or a private space habitat, and live in microgravity. You'd learn to eat, sleep, and use the bathroom in zero-G, which is way more challenging than it sounds. You'd see 16 sunrises and sunsets every 24 hours as you orbit Earth every 90 minutes. The views would be absolutely spectacular, but you'd also deal with space adaptation syndrome, basically motion sickness on steroids, at least for the first few days. And then there's lunar tourism. Companies like SpaceX are planning missions that would take you around the Moon and back. We're talking about a week-long journey covering roughly 500,000 miles. You wouldn't land on the Moon yet, that's coming later, but you'd see the far side that no tourist has ever seen with their own eyes. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the price tag. And trust me, you might want to sit down for this. Virgin Galactic's suborbital flights currently cost around $450,000 per seat. Blue Origin hasn't announced official pricing, but estimates put their tickets at $200,000 to $500,000 for just a few minutes in space. Let that sink in. Orbital missions? We're talking tens of millions of dollars. SpaceX's Axiom missions to the ISS have cost private astronauts around $55 million per seat. That includes the rocket ride, about 8 days on the station, training and support. Some missions have been even more expensive. A trip around the Moon. SpaceX's Dear Moon project, which has been planning to send artists around the Moon, is estimated to cost hundreds of millions of dollars total. Individual seat prices haven't been disclosed, but we're probably looking at $100 million or more per person. Now, before you completely give up hope, here's the important part. These prices are dropping. Remember when computers cost tens of thousands of dollars and filled entire rooms? Technology gets cheaper as it scales. Virgin Galactic alone has hundreds of people on their wait list. As the market grows and technology improves, experts predict these prices could fall dramatically over the next 10 to 20 years. Some analysts think suborbital flights could eventually cost as little as $50,000 to $100,000, like buying a luxury car. Orbital trips might come down to a few million. Still expensive, but potentially within reach for upper middle class people saving up for the trip of a lifetime. Let's be honest about the dangers here, because space tourism isn't like booking a cruise. Space travel is inherently risky, and anyone considering it needs to understand what they're signing up for. The statistics aren't great. Historically, about 3% of all space missions have resulted in fatal accidents. That's roughly 1 in every 33 flights. Compare that to commercial aviation, where your odds of dying in a plane crash are about 1 in 11 million. Space is literally thousands of times more dangerous. You're sitting on top of controlled explosions with millions of pounds of thrust. During re-entry, your spacecraft becomes a meteor, heating up to thousands of degrees. Systems can fail, weather can be unpredictable, and there's no emergency room if something goes wrong up there. That said, the space tourism companies are doing everything possible to improve safety. They're using redundant systems, extensive testing, automated safety protocols, and limiting flights to good weather conditions. Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin have completed multiple test flights successfully. SpaceX has an incredible safety record with its Dragon capsules. But you need to be physically prepared too. You'll go through medical screenings, G-force training, and emergency procedure drills. Some companies require you to be in reasonably good health, though the requirements are getting less strict as the technology improves. You don't need to be a peak condition astronaut anymore, but you do need to handle the physical stress. So beyond just the spacecraft, do we actually have the infrastructure to support a space tourism industry? The answer is, we're getting there, but we've got a long way to go. Right now, most launches happen from just a handful of spaceports: Cape Canaveral in Florida, Baikonur in Kazakhstan, sites in China, and Spaceport America in New Mexico. But dozens of new spaceports are under construction or in planning stages around the world. The UK, Australia, Sweden, and several other countries are building facilities specifically for space tourism. We're also seeing the development of space hotels. Axiom Space is building commercial modules that will attach to the ISS and eventually become a standalone space station. Orbital Assembly Corporation is designing rotating space stations with artificial gravity. Blue Origin has concepts for massive orbital habitats that could house thousands of people. The legal and regulatory framework is still catching up. Who's responsible if something goes wrong? What are the insurance requirements? What about space traffic control as launches become more frequent? Countries are working on these questions, but international space law is still in its early stages for commercial tourism. Environmental concerns are also real. Rocket launches produce significant carbon emissions and can damage the ozone layer. As the industry scales up, we'll need to address sustainability. Some companies are working on greener propellants and carbon offset programs, but this remains a challenge. Medical facilities, rescue capabilities, and emergency protocols all need major development. What happens if someone has a heart attack in orbit? How do you evacuate a lunar base? These aren't theoretical questions anymore, they're practical concerns that need solutions before space tourism can truly scale. Looking ahead, the next decade of space tourism is going to be absolutely wild. Here's what's on the horizon and when we might see it. Within the next 2 to 5 years, we should see regular suborbital tourist flights becoming almost routine, multiple orbital hotels coming online, and the first tourists circling the moon. SpaceX wants to send people around the moon by 2025 or 2026, though timelines in space always slip. By the 2030s, things get really interesting. We could see lunar surface tourism with actual moon landings. the first Mars tourist missions for the ultra-wealthy and brave, and point-to-point Earth travel, where you could fly from New York to Tokyo in under an hour by going through space. Imagine that as your daily commute. Long-term, beyond the 2030s, we're talking about permanent space settlements, asteroid mining tourism, where you could visit mining operations in the asteroid belt, and eventually interplanetary cruise ships. This might sound crazy, but remember that 60 years ago, going to the moon seemed impossible.
The democratization of space access is the real goal. What starts as a luxury for billionaires eventually becomes accessible to millions. That's how all transportation technology has evolved throughout history. Your grandkids might view a trip to orbit the way we view international flights today, routine and affordable. So, are we ready for space tourism? The honest answer is, we're ready for the beginning. The technology works, companies are flying missions, and the infrastructure is developing. But we're still in the experimental phase. It's expensive, it's risky, and it's limited to a tiny percentage of humanity. Should you book a ticket right now if you can afford it? That depends on your appetite for risk and adventure. You'd be a pioneer, literally writing yourself into the history books. But you'd also be taking on real dangers and paying premium prices for an industry still finding its footing. For the rest of us, keep watching. This industry is moving faster than anyone expected. The price will come down, the safety will improve, and the experience will get even better. Space tourism isn't a question of if anymore, it's a question of when, and that when is getting closer every single day. What do you think? Would you take a trip to space if you could afford it? Or does it seem too risky? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to keep up with the latest space tourism news and developments, hit that subscribe button. We've got more amazing space content coming your way. Thanks for watching, and who knows, maybe I'll see you in orbit someday.